All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of the League Express podcast. My name's Jake Kearnan, and joining me as always is the editor of League Express, Martyn Sadler. And Martyn, did you get up to much on your weekend, or were you sitting on the couch?
Well, I watched quite a lot of rugby league, actually.
Rugby.
That was, apart from that, I'm not sure I did get up to all that much, actually, Jake. I don't have much time to get up to anything at weekends these days with producing this newspaper and watching as many games as I can on the weekend, because of course we can not only go to games, but we can see so many now on TV. So I just need a few more hours in the day, mate, before I can get up to any mischief.
Yeah, well, that's it. At least you can say you're working when you're watching rugby league.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. But no, it was an interesting weekend, although there were some alarmingly one-sided scorelines, unfortunately, which was a bit disappointing, really. And Wigan and St Helens were re-establishing their dominance, weren't they, over the weekend with two very convincing wins on their part. So, and Catalans beating Leeds quite convincingly as well, but without really looking as though they were a great side. So, it's been an interesting weekend, there's no doubt about it. And let's not forget, before we finish today, that we must talk about the 1895 Cup semi-finals, Wakefield and Sheffield to meet in the 1895 Cup final, which will be quite historic. We'll talk about that. And also, we ought to give a nod to Cornwall, the rugby league club in Cornwall, which got its first win of the season at the weekend with a come-from-behind win at Midlands Hurricanes in Birmingham. So, two outpost teams serving up a great game of rugby league, and we ought to give them a mention. Maybe we will say something about it towards the end as well.
No, absolutely, mate. All right, well, we'll jump into the Thursday night's matchup. Warrington getting a pretty big win over Hull KR after they've, just beaten Saints and Wigan in the weeks prior. Did this come as a surprise at all to you, mate?
Well, no, I tipped Warrington to win. I thought, Hull KR have had two massive wins against Wigan and St Helens the previous weeks, and I don't care what anybody says. When you play the big teams like that, eventually it takes something out of you, and Warrington were able to take advantage of that, weren't they? They went into a pretty early 18-0 lead. I think they scored 3 tries in the first 28 minutes. And once you lead 18-0, you're always going to win a game, aren't you? But Hull KR, to their credit, they came back and scored the final 2 tries of the game. Jack Broadbent, who continues to look a good signing for Hull KR, in my view, scoring 1 in the first half, and then Mikey Lewis scoring up what I thought was a brilliant individual try, actually, showing fantastic footwork near the line, which is so characteristic of him. So the scoreline didn't look quite as bad as it looked as though it could have been at one stage in that game, and it was. I thought it was a hugely enjoyable game, and I don't think Hull KR fans should be unhappy with the way their team performed, and they still look like a top team to me, and I think they'll be in the top 4. And Warrington maybe as well. It was a really fascinating contest in my opinion.
And I think post-match, Willie Peters was saying he was really proud with how the Rovers, treated the second half. They sort of got back to the game. I guess you could say they did. They
never stopped fighting, did they? To get back into it. I mean, they ran out of time in the end, but but Warrington, good for them. They're still joint top of the table. Toby King scoring 2 tries for them looks, a great signing to me, does Toby King, having come back to Warrington after having been at Huddersfield and Wigan. For some reason, they let him go a couple of years ago, but then realised, presumably, that they'd made a mistake in doing that. So, no, great stuff for Warrington.
Every time I watch Mikey Lewis play, we have like a term back home. It's that's just backyard footy, and just him chasing the rebound of his own kick and regathering and then stepping. It's something you'd see, your brothers or your mates do in the backyard growing up in Australia, and you can just tell. He
chases the ball, doesn't he? He chases the ball and does very well. But as I say, I've said in a previous podcast that I think his kicking game has improved 100% this year. And, he's taking on much more responsibility with Jordan Abdul having left in the close season. He is taking on much more responsibility. And that's really interesting. And he's rising to the challenge, in my view.
Yeah. We move on to the Friday night matchup. St Helens 60 defeated Cass 4. Big scoreline this one, and 2 players sent off.
Yes, it was a big score. It didn't look as though it was going to be such a big score. At half time, it was only the half-time score was 4 points to 8. St Helens scored 2 early tries that were unconverted, and then Castleford got one back through in a senior who continues to look a really good signing for them, doesn't he? And I thought actually St Helens tries. The first half tries were slightly fortunate. The first one from Sione Matautia came after only 4 minutes, but it came after a high kick into the Castleford defence, and Jack Welsby palmed the ball down. And I thought there was a real question mark over whether that was palmed forward. Yeah. But the video referee, who I think was Liam Rush, didn't really spend much time looking at that, and I thought if he'd spent a bit more time on it, he might have decided that it did go forward. And I thought it did, if I'm really honest about it. So I thought Castleford were quite unlucky with that, and I thought they were a bit unlucky prior to the second St Helens try, of course, which was scored by Johnny Lomax, because Castleford were giving a debut to Sam Esse, the Wigan player, the Wigan forward, and Sam lost the ball shortly before that try in a tackle, but I thought that James Bell clearly ripped it from him, really clearly pushed it out of his grasp, and should have been penalised for that. But instead, he wasn't. It was it was judged a knock on, and in the very shortly afterwards, Johnny Lomax scored a really good try. You've got to say a very very good try. But I thought Castleford were a bit unlucky in both those instances, really, and it's they could be encouraged by the first half performance, but not really that much by the second half performance, unfortunately. And I thought the 2 send-offs. Well, both players have been suspended for 1 match, haven't they? Tommy Makinson and Castleford's Liam Horn, So obviously, I think the send-offs were both justifiable. Although oddly enough, I think the 2 players will not serve a game suspension because I think both of their reserve sides have got games this weekend and they count. I think that's
the old
absolutely
Challenge Cup
ridiculous.
Loophole.
The old Challenge Cup loophole, or reserve grade loophole as it is in this case.
Yeah. And
I think that's ridiculous. I do think that when you're suspended, you ought to have to serve your suspension in the competition in which you're suspended. But anyway, that's not the case, and obviously you can't blame St Helens and Castleford if they take advantage of the rules as they are.
That's right. Well, if the rules permit it. Just a couple of points on this game. Conrad Hurrell off contract at the end of the season. I thought he had a really good game.
My God, he looks a hard man to tackle, doesn't he? It really does look a hard man to tackle. And of course, there were 2 Castleford players who failed head injury assessments. That was obviously disappointing for them. Tex Hoy was one of them, and the other one was Alex Meller. And the 18th man in this case got a rare run out, didn't he? Brad Martyn got onto the pitch for Castleford, and that was obviously it's probably fortunate again for Castleford that they don't have a game this weekend, so that the 11-day stand-down period for failed HIAs can be satisfied without either of those 2 players missing a game. Yeah,
definitely, and they're crucial. Wongan Blake scoring a hat-trick. He seems to be finding his
down
feet
a bit,
slowly.
Yes. Yeah, I think he's taken a bit of time, but he's looking as though he has found his feet now, doesn't he?
Yeah. Well, fingers crossed that form can continue. Now we'll move on to the Leigh-Salford game. Leigh 40 defeated Salford 12. Bit of a surprise this score.
Well,
great from Leigh.
Not to me. I thought Leigh would win it. I thought Leigh would be extremely committed and determined. They're determined to climb the league. They've now got 7 points. They're still, I think, 3 points behind Huddersfield, aren't they? And still, quite a way out of the top 6 if we just look at the league table. But if I can find it, yes, here it is. Yeah, they've got 7 points. The teams in the top 6. Salford are 6 with 14, so there's still a long way to go for Leigh. But I think they'll make it. I think they'll get into the top 6 personally. So I think they're good enough. But they've got a series of away games coming up, so that will be a challenge for them. But wasn't it great to see Josh Charnley scoring his 300th career try?
Yeah.
What a player.
In great fashion as well.
It was a fabulous try. In fact, there were a lot of fabulous tries over the weekend. We make a try of the week every week, and I thought it was going to be that one until one popped up later that we'll that we'll talk about. But great to see him doing so well. Great to see the Leopards as a whole playing well after what was such a disappointing start to the season. So I think they're a very good team, and Salford were just not quite good enough to give them a game really on Friday night.
And the bigger the score lines that they can achieve, the better for their case to make that 6 at the end, because for and against is always very important coming into the season.
Yes, and it looks as though it could be this year.
Especially after their draw last week. I'm sure they're very dirty still about coming up with that draw against Cass. So.
Well, they should have won that game, shouldn't they? But credit to Castleford for having pulled that game back.
No, absolutely. Now we will move on to Wigan Huddersfield. Wigan 48 defeated Huddersfield 6. A big win for Wigan.
Well, this was a disappointing result for Huddersfield, wasn't it? By my goodness, and it was funny really because Huddersfield scored what we did adjudge to be the try of the week, which was young Elliot Wallace, the winger, running from inside his own half and beating defender after defender to touchdown for an absolutely superb try. And we all settled back in our seats, I think, at the time and thought, gosh, this is going to be a good game. But as it turned out, Wigan were just absolutely too good for them. And, it was Wigan being back to the sort of form that they were showing earlier in the season. Liam Marshall scoring 3 tries and just generally just playing extremely well. But it's interesting to see that Wigan... the great thing for them this year is that they don't seem to be suffering any significant injury problems. The only player in their top 13, well, in fact, top 17 players who wasn't in their 21-man named squad was Willie Isa, who's out with injury at the moment. But apart from him, every Wigan player, in their top 17 squad numbers, is available for selection, which makes a massive difference, doesn't it? And you can contrast that with Huddersfield, who had quite a few players who weren't, who were playing who were not in their top 17. So that that does make an awful difference, and we saw it with Castleford as well. A lot of players wearing very high squad numbers in Castleford's game against St Helens, and you can't expect to win games when you're having to change your side about as much as that implies.
That's right, and your campaign, it's based a lot on form, but a lot of it is luck with injury, and you're seeing in the NRL right now, so many teams have lost star players.
Absolutely.
I think Madge is going to have a tough time picking his Blues squad with all the injuries he's had pop up over the last few weeks. So.
Well, you won't mind that because you're a Queenslander, will you?
Absolutely, mate. I think this might be one of the first series where Queensland's come in as favourites in Game 1, so I don't like that. I like being the underdog as a Queenslander.
Queensland always play better when they're the underdogs, don't they? It's a strange thing.
But yeah, mate, it's an interesting one. The Liam Byrne yellow card, I think that caused a little bit of controversy. I think Matty Pete had a few things to say about it in his post-match presser. He said that he just wants a little bit more consistency around some of the high contact
Well, Liam Byrne
calls.
has been suspended for 2 matches, hasn't he? So he will miss the Challenge Cup semi-final this weekend and one other league game. And I've not looked at that incident that closely. It happened right at the very start of the game in the first tackle, I think it was, wasn't it? But obviously Liam Byrne has got a bit of a disciplinary record now. This is the second time he's been suspended this season. So obviously somebody needs to sort of adjust the way that he goes into tackles if he's not going to suffer more as the season goes on, I imagine.
He's a tall fellow too. I've seen
he
him
is,
in person.
yeah,
He's a
big
big
guy.
boy. So it just needs to maybe bend at the hips a little bit more and get a bit lower.
Something like that, yes.
Yeah. And Bevan French, an absolute blinder as well. He's playing some of his best footy.
Magnificent player. Yeah, absolutely.
We'll move
just
on.
looks unstoppable, really, doesn't it? Sometimes.
Oh, it's like he puts the game in slow motion and just weaves through the defensive line at times.
Absolutely great signing for Wigan.
We'll move on to the next matchup on the Saturday. We had Catalans 26 defeated Leeds 0.
A strange sort of a game, really, because it was a game that didn't quite take off, mainly because it was pretty uncompetitive throughout. You know, Leeds never really looked as though they were going to challenge the Catalans, and the Catalans didn't have to play that well in order to win the game. You know, it's strange, and that was sort of reflected in the post-game comments by Steve McNamara, who didn't seem very happy with his side, whereas Leeds coach Rowan Smith seemed a lot happier with his. But again, another example with Leeds of a team with a lot of players wearing squad numbers in their 20s. You know, so in other words, there's a lot of players missing from Leeds' side, and that does make a massive difference. In their 21-man squad, they even had 4 players who were wearing squad numbers 30 or more. And that does tell you that a side is struggling with a lot of injuries. And, you know, we've got to wait until some of these top players can come back again to see whether Leeds are really capable of making a significant challenge this year, I think. And
do you think, that sort of relieves the pressure on Rowan Smith a little bit?
Well, I think it probably does. And, of course, the 2-week break now with the Challenge Cup coming up is going to be good for Leeds, I think. They need to regroup, and they need to get some of these players back. I mean, they're still only 2 points outside the top 6. They've got 12 points from 11 games. So it's not been, it hasn't been a disaster for them this year, but they've lost too many games. They've lost too many games at home. The fans are onto them a bit, and Leeds fans are always disappointed when they're not winning every game, aren't they? And but they're not at the moment, and they don't look like a major challenger this year so far.
Yeah, the pressures of being a bigger club, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
Now we'll move on to Sunday's matchup. A bit of a feel-good story here, Martyn. London 34 defeated Hull FC 18. A feel-good story depending on what team you support, I guess.
Good if you're a London supporter, but my daughter and son-in-law were there because my son-in-law is a very big Hull FC fan.
Okay.
And she sent me a very nice message before the game kicked off saying that they'd taken, about half an hour before the game started, they'd taken their seats. They were surrounded by fans from both sides. Lots of families were there, and it was a wonderful atmosphere, she said. Great to be there. It was a lovely sunny afternoon in Wimbledon, and they were looking forward to what they hoped would be a great game. As it turned out, it wasn't such a good game for Hull FC, and at the end of the game, the Hull fans really jeered at their own side when the players went over to the fans to acknowledge them, because they'd come a long way, obviously, from Hull, and there were quite a lot of them. And the fans just more or less, told them, you've not just performed as you should have done, and that's undeniable. But on the other hand, it was great to see London get their first win at last, and I'm delighted to see, some of their players. One kid I really enjoy watching, because he plays with such incredible enthusiasm, is young Oliver Leyland for London. And it's such a shame that his brother, Bill Leyland, did his anterior cruciate ligament before the season started, and would have been, I think, a real tremendous asset in Super League for the Broncos this year. But sadly, he's out for the whole season. But I feel really pleased for Mike Eccles, their coach, who's watched his team playing with enthusiasm and commitment for most of the season, but without getting any results. And it was just great to see them get one in the end. But you've got to say, I mean, I've been talking to one or two people since the weekend, and I think everybody's saying what a damn shame it is that there isn't a relegation battle in the offing this year, because London and Hull are level at the bottom, and it would be tremendous if London had a chance of staying up in Super League. But of course they don't have, and that's just such a ridiculous situation, isn't it? It's crazy.
And it does create excitement too, whereas now when we're watching these bottom-of-the-table clashes, we might not be as likely to sit in and tune in and watch them because...
Yeah.
What's the point if there's no real battle happening down there?
Well, the crazy thing is as well, according to the IMG gradings that they, issued preliminary gradings last year, Hull got an A grade. Well, nobody can tell me at the moment that Hull is an A grade club because they're not, and because these things should be decided on the pitch, really. Unfortunately, and I'm sure Hull fans would agree with this, at the moment they're not performing as an A-grade club should perform. And they've got problems. I mean, who's going to come in, who's going to go out? They're struggling so much. I noticed one of their signings this year, Jayden Ockenbaugh, has now been relegated to the reserves, which sort of, you've got to say their recruitment has been very dodgy. They've let another young player go, Jack Brown, go to Hull KR. Now, I don't know whether that's a good move or not because I've not watched Jack Brown carefully enough, but Hull have got this record of letting players go to other clubs who then perform better at the clubs they go to. And that's got to be very unsatisfactory.
Actually, I'm pretty sure over the weekend I saw Ockenbaugh's now he's on loan to Bradford.
Oh, he's gone to Bradford. Yes, that's
right.
But
he was in reserve grade.
Yes,
he wasn't getting picked in the team.
Yes, they've sent him on loan to Bradford, which again just sort of shows. Well, what's the point of that, really?
Yeah, and it just you scratch your head at the recruitment choices. Then he's only played 10, 11 games, not even that much.
I mean, there are not many positives for Hull FC on Sunday, but. Franklin Pele did have one or two good charges into the defence, and actually he, in the first half, he charged into the London captain, Will Lovell, and Will Lovell had to go off injured, and he's quite a forceful handful. Is Franklin Pele if he's got somebody feeding him a ball? I mean, he'd be incredible to be fed 10 yards out from the try line, almost unstoppable, I would have thought. But the trouble is, Hull are not creating situations where they're getting into that position, are they?
And I think someone like him, he is a great impact player. I'd love to just see him come off the bench, maybe in the 25th minute, and just try and provide that bit of impact.
Yes,
as the middles are starting to tire, because he is a big body and hard to stop.
But that game won't have done very much for. Simon Grix getting the full-time coaching job at Hull, I'm afraid.
No. I mean,
disappointing from his point of view.
Yeah, no, it's a tough job for him to try and salvage. Their season, but all right. Well, we'll move on to some of the news we've seen around the league over the past week or so, mate. Some other Hull-related news. Willie Peters, he's extended or signed a new contract with Hull KR for a few more years to come. Yeah,
3-year extension to 2028. Yeah, obviously the club knows where its bread is buttered, doesn't it? Yeah. As you might say. And Willie Peters has done a fantastic job since taking the reins in 2023. It's fairly obvious that Hull KR recognise that Willie will be a target for NRL clubs who are looking to change coaches. I mean, he's an ex-South Sydney guy, so you think South Sydney might have spotted how well he's doing over here, although they look still as though they're going to appoint Wayne Bennett. But yes, great news for Hull KR. It's funny, isn't it? As the news for Hull FC gets worse and worse, and the news for Hull KR gets better and better, and that must be particularly galling for Hull FC fans, really.
Yeah.
Hull KR are managing themselves far more effectively than Hull FC are at the moment, and that's all you can say about it.
I must say, Willie Peters, he just comes across as a really likeable guy.
Oh, yeah.
The
great thing about him is he's settled into life in England very well, much more easily, because he's brought his family with him, of course. He's got some young kids who are at school and so on, and not all Australians find it easy to settle in that sort of way. But you get the feeling that Willie Peters is just the sort of guy who who will see the best in everything, really.
Yeah.
And obviously he has done.
No, definitely. And in some other coaching-related news, you reached out to a coach down under, mate.
Jason Demetriou. Yeah, I was in touch with Jason. Basically, I just asked him, if sympathised with him for leaving Souths, and congratulated him on his successes and so on. But I wanted to know whether he, would be interested in coming back to England at any time. And Jason gave a non-committal answer in a sense, but did say that he's open to all offers. Basically, he's a coach who's on the market. So, and I think he's a very good coach. It's a funny thing with Jason that he coached Keighley Cougars to promotion back probably more than 10 years ago now, when he was still in this country. And he is an Anglophile, I think it's fair to say. But he's had some remarkable success in coaching teams just below the top level in Australia before he became Wayne Bennett's assistant at South Sydney. And for the most part did a really great job there, and was doing a great job at South Sydney when he took the head coaching role on. Halfway through last year, they were the top of the league, but then suddenly they had a problem, and they fell down the league. Sam Burgess left. Obviously, Sam wasn't happy there, and without knowing what's gone on internally in detail, it's difficult to comment on that, to be honest. But I think Jason is potentially a really fine coach, and if I were looking for a coach over here, I'd be very keen to talk to him and explore what possibilities there might be.
Richie
so
Myler,
that's my advice to Hull FC. Yeah, my advice to Hull FC is to consider Jason very carefully, along with all the other potential candidates, of course.
I'm just thinking about ways that we could sort of, if he were to come back over, the marketing around the conflict between Sam and Jason Demetriou, you could build up a bit of a spectacle around those two.
I'm sure you could do all that. I don't think either of those guys would want to see that being built up, to be honest. I think they'd both want to pull back from that. We saw that with Sam, didn't we, on last Thursday night when he was interviewed before the game against Hull KR, and he was asked about the Richie Myler incident, and he didn't want to go into it, really.
Yep. No, any drama's good. I like the
so
off-field drama.
Yes,
and
so do I.
It sort of adds to the spectacle, doesn't
it?
But we'll see.
Build up rivalries.
Yeah, but I think we were discussing before the podcast, he's got a deal with Triple M Radio in Australia, which will probably so he'll do a bit of media for the rest of the season. But hey, I mean, we could see him over here next year.
Well,
perhaps.
you never know.
We'll
You never know. Or he might be at another NRL club. Who knows?
Yeah, true. Now, I was reading League Express this week, Martyn, and it looks like Ireland are trying to sort of put together a few fixtures going forward.
Against the England Knights, they've had their membership of the International Rugby League downgraded, unfortunately, basically because they've not got an adequate domestic competition. And Jed Corcoran is trying to revive the Ireland international team. They've not played for a long time. They won't be contenders for the next World Cup, which is presumably going to be in Australia in 2026, although it's not been confirmed yet. But we need these home nations to develop, in my view. There's potentially so many good, rugby league players who could come out of Ireland, as anybody who watches any Irish sport would recognise. And I mean, obviously we had Brian Kearney, who became an international out of Cork, and there are loads of other young Irish kids who, play Gaelic football or rugby union, whatever, in that country who could easily make the grade in our sport, in my opinion.
We see how successful their rugby team's been
fabulous,
over the past few years. So.
Coached by Andy Farrell, of course,
That's
the ex-Wigan, rugby league star.
So we might have to poach some of their juniors, perhaps, and try.
Well,
and
absolutely,
yes. But yeah, and another article I saw, mate, a new Sky Rugby League streaming platform is going to be announced. Apparently it's going to be launched in August, but
yes.
I sort of wondered what's the difference between this and Super League Plus and...
Well, the difference is that on Sky, if you're a Sky subscriber, you will be able to download all these games from Sky, from the Sky platform. Whereas if you're not a Sky subscriber, you can't download Sky Games, but you can if you subscribe to the Rugby League's Sky Plus system. You can watch the games. You can watch, I think, 4 games a week live. The games that are not sort of highlighted on Sky.
Right. So it sort of saves people having to pay for their Sky and then the Super League Plus subscription. Okay, great. Yeah. Well, that makes sense, doesn't it? Good to see. Now, we will jump into our 1895 Cup news. It's Wakefield Trinity and Sheffield Eagles. They'll get to play at Wembley this year, which is quite
Wakefield
exciting.
had quite a difficult game at Bradford on Sunday. They were 8-6 down at half-time, but eventually they prevailed in the second half and won pretty convincingly, really, at the end of the day. I think the score was 40 points to
14, I think.
40 points to 14, yeah. So it was comfortable in the end, but it was apparently a really good game, and, they will go back to Wembley for the first time since 1979 when they lost to Widnes in the Challenge Cup final. Yep. They were also there in 4 times in the 1960s. 1960, 62 and 63 they won. 68 they lost the famous water splash final to Leeds. And Sheffield Eagles, they won at York 28-18. That was quite a tight game. Again, a really interesting game to watch, apparently. And Sheffield Eagles have been to Wembley twice and have never lost there, oddly enough. They beat Wigan in 1998, 17 points to 8. And they beat Widnes, I think it was in 2019, in the first 1895 Cup final to be played at Wembley. And so, as I say, they've never lost, and that's quite interesting, isn't it?
And they'll be hungry to get a bit of payback for the defeat that Wakefield gave them a few weeks back.
Well, they will. I mean, Wakefield will take a lot of fans to Wembley. I mean, Wakefield fans have been wanting to go back to Wembley for a long time, and even though it's the 1895 Cup, I think they'll follow them in large numbers. And if you want to know how to get your tickets, by the way, get a copy of League Express. There's an RFL advert on the back of League Express this week telling you, how you can get tickets from only £20 or £10 from under 16s. So let's pack the place out. And it's going to be interesting because you've got Darryl Powell coaching Wakefield against Mark Aston coaching Sheffield. Now, you're too young to remember this, Jake, but when the Sheffield club was set up in 1984, Darryl Powell and Mark Aston were teammates at that time. Mark Aston was a very young kid just coming through. I think I can't remember precisely when he made his Sheffield debut, but Darryl Powell was a 19-year-old who was Sheffield Eagles' first ever signing. And I remember I was actually there at the time because I used to work in Sheffield in those days, and I was very much involved with the Sheffield club. And Gary Hetherington, who'd set up the club at that time, unveiled Darryl Powell at a press conference, and put down a marker really for how determined they were to make it a great success. So. Really something to look forward to. Mark Aston won the Landstod Trophy in 1998, by the way, so that's another interesting little sort of side issue here, I suppose. And I think it'll be a very competitive game. And I don't think it'll be easy for Wakefield. Obviously, Wakefield will be the favourites, but Sheffield are a good side and well coached, and I think they'll give Wakefield a hell of a scare. So
there's a lot of great storylines around the game. You just hope that we can market those storylines and try and build up a bit of hype around this matchup and the history of the clubs.
Absolutely. Both clubs, need to sort of get at each other in the media, don't they? And build it up a bit like a heavyweight title fight. This weekend's heavyweight title fight. We need to have a bit more of that in rugby league, in my view.
Even just some like one-on-one interviews with some of those players. And
maybe we can have a word with some of them on this podcast.
Yeah, absolutely.
That would be great, wouldn't it?
And we'll find out this weekend who will feature in the Challenge Cup final. But we'll move on to some of the topics you brought up in your column this week, Martyn. Now. We'll start with Warrington's bid to generate some new fans. I thought that was very interesting with their Hong Kong
apparently
community.
6,000 Hong Kong people have moved to the Warrington area in recent years, which I didn't know that, of course. But it's really, we've got to expand the fan base for our sport. There's no question about it. And if they can get communities like that, generating some interest, then it would be wonderful. I don't know whether... you were at Warrington at the weekend. I don't know whether you saw many people who were obviously Hong Kong Chinese people at the stadium.
I can't say I really took notice. Had I've known going into it, I probably would have made more of an effort to look around.
Had a look, yeah.
But yeah.
Who knows? If they can get just a few hundred, that would be marvellous, wouldn't it?
Yeah. And I know the game, like rugby league itself, is probably a little bit foreign to them, but the concept isn't completely foreign because they do have the Hong Kong Sevens tournament that's held there every year.
Absolutely.
And, it's a similar style of rugby sevens and rugby league with the pace. Just
Absolutely,
a few more players on the field. So, credit to Warrington if they can try and, draw in some of those fans. It'd be great for our game.
And it should be the same for all clubs, shouldn't it? I know quite a lot of our clubs do make big efforts to... draw in fans from, ethnic minority communities. Bradford are very active in terms of trying to draw in supporters who have an Asian background. But it's hard to convert them, because it's just not part of their culture, really, by and large. So, you struggle, but you've got to, if you don't try, you'll never succeed, will you?
Yeah, that's right. Another point you mentioned in your column, Martyn, was some of the reaction you got around your Challenge Cup proposals.
I don't think there are any genuine objections to what I proposed. The key thing is that the Challenge Cup final should be moved to October, to the week before the Super League Grand Final. And if it were, it would be a wonderful end to the season. And in the old days, when that did happen, there were only two occasions. This was before we went to two divisions in 1973. There were only two occasions between the Second World War and 1973, when a team did the double, winning both the Cup and the League. And that was in 1954 when Warrington did it. And interestingly enough, in 1954, Warrington played Halifax at Wembley. They drew 4-4. They had a replay 10 days later at Odsal, and Warrington won 8-4 in front of 102,000 and odd people. And then 3 days later, they played Halifax again in the championship final at Main Road in Manchester, which was Manchester City's old ground, and they won 8-7. So Warrington did the double over Halifax. Halifax finished top of the league that year, oddly enough, but Warrington actually beat them in the two games that mattered. And then in 1966, St Helens beat Wigan 21-2 at Wembley in the Challenge Cup final, and a week later they beat Halifax in the championship final. I think it was 35-12, and great climaxes to the season in both cases, and but the fact that it was done so rarely shows that it's hard to do, and the fact that it's hard to do is all the more reason for putting the two games together, so that if a team can win both big games, they get the credit they deserve.
That's right, and it's not always going to be guaranteed that the same teams will be competing in both. So
no, not at all. No.
Potentially,
last year, for example, last year you had Leigh and Hull KR in the Challenge Cup final, and Wigan and Catalans in the Grand Final. And it would have been great to have both games on successive Saturdays.
Yeah, and that's right, and something for all four fan bases to look forward to.
Absolutely,
this season. So. Yeah, mate, we'll see if the RFL will take on some of those proposals.
Oh, I doubt it. I mean, they very rarely adopt ideas that I put out, but you never know. Who knows? We might suddenly get some change.
Now, there was also a note in your column of the reactions from Vegas.
Yes.
Danny Weidler's done a bit of a story on that.
In the Sydney Morning Herald, yeah. Yes, interesting. 70% of people rated the experience as 5 out of 5, which was pretty good, wasn't it?
Yep. And it looks like there's a bit of interest in fans returning for next year's fixture. I think was it 30% was saying they would if their team was performing, but 70% said that they were keen to go back.
And 31% of the people who were surveyed, 1,500 people surveyed, 31% had never been to a rugby league match before.
Great.
But obviously enjoyed it. And that's really great. I mean, it really is important to build up the Las Vegas weekend. Hopefully, get even more people there next year, and it would be great to see some British role in that weekend, wouldn't it, as well, whether World Club Challenge or whatever it might be.
No, definitely. Now, Martyn, we had, I think it was last week's episode, we had a question in the comments, so I just thought I'd put it towards you. The best young player of the year so far, who's impressed you? So I guess this far into the season.
Well, the kid who was impressing me was Leon Hayes before his very unfortunate injury. So that's one guy. It depends how young does a player have to be a young player. Yeah. I mean, the players who have made breakthroughs this year, Amila Hanley impresses me on the wing at Leigh. As I mentioned earlier, young Oliver Leyland, I'm not quite sure how old he is, but he's obviously in his rookie season in Super League this year, because they weren't in Super League last year. He's impressed me a lot. Junior and Samba, the big Wigan forward, he's a giant of a kid and looks a potentially terrific player. I've got to say,
the sky's the limit for him.
Oh,
his potential,
no doubt about it. I could easily see him, for example, playing in the NRL at some stage, following Kai Pearce-Paul over there from Wigan. So there've been quite a lot of young players. Elliot Wallace at Huddersfield, I think. You see the try he scored at the weekend, and you think, my goodness, what potential he's got. And there are lots of them. There are lots of potential young players coming through, I think.
Tell you what, that's a pretty impressive list you've rattled off there, Martyn. So I guess the future's looking bright for
well, I think so. Well, I hope you would certainly like to hope so, wouldn't you? You would certainly like to hope so.
I'd say my picks would be very similar. Obviously disappointing. Leon has gone down with that gruesome injury, but he'll be back bigger and better than ever, I'd imagine.
Absolutely.
Now, some historic news from down under. We've got the first Women's State of Origin 3-game series
Thursday.
Kicking off this Thursday ahead of Magic Round in Brisbane. Great to see the game finally the series become 3 games.
Oh, cool. And the entertainment level is terrific with these games. I think one of the NRL's incredible success stories has been the NRLW, the women's competition. And if you watch the Women's State of Origin, they really do. They are great games. Obviously played at a different level from men's State of Origin, but really skillful. There's a lot of very skillful female players in, not just in Australia, in this country as well. But it's a great spectacle, and it'd be really interesting to see how many fans turn up on Thursday night in Brisbane to watch this game.
No, hopefully they'll pack it out, and hopefully people who are travelling up to Brisbane for Magic Round will go a day early and make sure they catch that game, because it's always an exciting fixture, and they tend to be pretty close games, the women's State of Origin matches.
They do, and it's going to be interesting to see. I mean, obviously last year each team won one game, and it was a bit unsatisfactory to award the Shield to Queensland just because they had a slightly better points difference. And this year, hopefully, it will be based on one team winning 2-1 or 3-0. And that's much more satisfactory, isn't it?
No, definitely. And other news we've had over the last week or so, I don't think it's been officially announced by the clubs, but David Fafita looks to have secured his future with the Sydney Roosters following, I think he's given notification to the Titans that he will be leaving at the end of the season. Big signing for the Roosters.
He's never quite delivered for the Titans in the way that they hoped. I mean, he's a very good player, and tremendously strong, able, carries the ball brilliantly, and scored a great try for the Titans. Oddly enough, at the weekend, and they had a really good win, didn't they? Only their second win of the season, which was incredible against Manly. And just looking, yes, let's have a look. Gold Coast, it was 20 points. No, it wasn't Manly. It was North Queensland Cowboys. Yeah. It was a Queensland derby. 20 points to 18. And Fafita scored their second try. So, I think he's a great signing for the Roosters, who are losing quite a few people at the end of this season, aren't they? With Joey Manu and Joseph Swahili moving to rugby union. So they had money in the bank that they could spend on signing new players. But just one thing, by the way, on the Roosters, I think that Dominic Young is just playing out of his skin at the moment, and his statistics last weekend were absolutely, in their win over New Zealand Warriors, were absolutely incredible. And it's great to see a young Englishman playing so well, isn't it?
Yeah, he's got tremendous potential. I think he's still got a little bit he will develop even further and become a more dominant player, but just the way he's playing at the moment.
Oh, great.
In that professional
side. It augurs
side.
well for England as well, hopefully.
Yeah, definitely. And I wonder if I'm sure Justin Holbrook was very crucial in getting Fafita to come to the Roosters. I know Penrith were also chasing
I'm sure
him.
he was, yes.
But yeah, I'm sure that connection with Holbrook certainly helped. All right, Martyn, is there any other news you want to talk about before we jump into this weekend's picks?
Well, as I say, just to pay tribute again to the Cornwall club for getting their first win of the season and coming from behind as they did to beat the Midlands Hurricanes in Birmingham. And oddly enough, the Midlands Hurricanes had travelled to Cornwall a few weeks earlier and put 70 points past them. So that shows a remarkable improvement on the part of Cornwall. And I just think it's so great to see rugby league being played at this level, in a part of the United Kingdom that isn't normally associated with our sport, and it's just absolutely wonderful to see. And long may Cornwall continue and enjoy even more success.
No, absolutely, and we've sort of spoke a bit about the challenges they face in terms of travel and having to travel for their fixtures.
And
so
it's also worth mentioning this result: the Women's Super League Round 3, Leeds Rhinos travelling to York Valkyrie and winning 16 points to 10 in what was another terrific match by two of the very top teams in women's rugby league in this country. And again, more people ought to get out and watch women's rugby league because it really is entertaining.
No, it must have been a tough battle, 16 to 10.
Absolutely.
There can be some big scorelines in the women's game.
Oh,
but
there are, but not all clubs are at an equal level, are they?
No, that's right.
Mind you say the same about Super League, really.
Yeah, absolutely right. All right, Martyn, we'll look at this weekend's matchups. On Saturday, Hull KR taking on Wigan. Who do you have in this one?
I think I would have to go for Wigan, simply because they've got all the players available, as we've said, apart from Liam Byrne now, of course, who's suspended, and Willie Isa, who's injured. But Wigan, I think Wigan will be really determined to get to Wembley this year. They won the Challenge Cup in 2022 against Huddersfield, but that was at Tottenham. I think they'll want to play at Wembley, and I think they might just have a bit too much ammunition for Hull KR, but it could be a really close game, and I wouldn't be in the slightest bit surprised to see Hull KR win. At the moment, I'd say 60-40 Wigan, but get ready for Hull KR to put one over them again, because of course they beat them convincingly at Craven Park just 2 or 3 weeks ago.
Well, that's right. It was the only trophy they didn't secure last season, Wigan, so they'll be after it this year. Moving on to Sunday's matchup, Warrington taking on Huddersfield.
Well, I think Warrington will win this one, and I mean, I can't imagine anybody at the RFL really wants to see a Wigan-Huddersfield Challenge Cup final after Wigan beat Huddersfield 48-6 at the weekend. So, but I think Warrington might just be a bit too strong for Huddersfield. Huddersfield are so inconsistent; they really are. It must make Ian Watson tear his hair out, I think. So I think it's going to be Warrington. But again, whereas I said the other game was 60-40, I think this is more like 70-30 in terms of percentages. But so I see Warrington winning. But Huddersfield hopefully will be a different team to the one that played Wigan at the weekend.
Warrington do have the rest advantage, obviously playing that Thursday night fixture last week. They've got an extra 2 days off than Huddersfield does, so I'm sure Sam will be...
I think it would be a great achievement for Sam to be at Wembley in his first year in charge at Warrington.
Absolutely. All right, mate. Well, we will remind our viewers and listeners, if you do want to grab your subscription to League Express, head along to www.totalrl.com/shop. You can also...
Josh Charnley on the front cover of League Express this week, celebrating his 300 career tries. What a terrific achievement by him.
300, it's just... To cross that many times,
incredible, isn't it? You know, and still going strong. You know, he's actually chasing Ryan Hall, and both of them are chasing Danny Maguire's Super League record, aren't they?
Yeah.
So that's really amazing.
Could be. They could probably get that this year if they keep scoring at the rate they are.
Absolutely, they will do. Yeah.
And we will remind our viewers on YouTube, hit subscribe if you're watching. I think we're over 930 subscribers now.
We are, yes.
And approaching
heading
1,000.
for 1,000, hopefully.
Keep...
and tell your friends about this podcast too.
Absolutely. And, when you do subscribe, you are notified when we upload our podcast. So, you'll never miss an episode, which is great.
It is.
All right, Martyn, we might wrap it up here and do it again next week, mate. Thanks again.
It's a pleasure. Thanks a lot, Jake.
Cheers, mate.
Thanks, mate.